Good morning, hello, and welcome. Whether you are a student curious about privacy law or a professional navigating data protection in your field, or simply someone who wants to understand GDPR in a clear and simple way, this video is for you. In today's digital world, data is power and privacy is a right. That's where the General Data Protection Regulation or GDPR comes in. But understanding GDPR doesn't have to be complicated, and that's exactly what I aim to do in this video. Together, we'll walk through the origins and evolution of GDPR, uncover its scope and applicability, and explore its core principles like lawfulness, fairness, transparency, and purpose limitation. We will then dig into the legal basis for processing data and how organizations must earn the right to use personal information. You'll also learn about the 8 powerful rights granted to the data subject, from accessing their data to the right to be forgotten, and the obligations organizations must fulfill to stay compliant. I will also try to break down how enforcement works, what the penalties look like, and what this means for different industries like the tech, healthcare, education, and finance. But that's not all. We'll also zoom out and examine how GDPR fits into the larger world of data governance, how it has influenced global privacy laws, and the technological tools organizations use to stay compliant. We'll explore the ongoing debate of innovation versus regulation, look at the challenges and criticism GDPR faces today, and close with thoughts on the future of GDPR and data protection in an increasingly connected world. My goal in this video is simple: to make GDPR understandable, relatable, and relevant. Whether you're just starting out or you have been in the privacy and compliance space for years, we will go through as many aspects as possible so that the understanding is clearer and any fog on this subject can be taken off. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore GDPR simplified and demystified. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe only if this has helped you in any form and shape. Leave a comment if you would like to explore other compliance tools like DORA, DPDP Act, NIST, AI regulations in future video. Well, do note some of them have already been covered in my earlier videos. Some are on the way. So keep a close watch on the channel. This is your host Savit Vittal Salian. Namaskaram. And thanks for watching. So let's dive in. Welcome to part 3 of the General Data Protection Regulation or GDPR. In part 1 and part 2, we covered the introduction, origins and evolution of GDPR, scope and applicability, core principles of GDPR, legal basis for processing data, data subject rights, organizational obligations, regulatory enforcement and penalties, impact across sectors. We looked at checklist around few of the areas. Checklist was indicative, something that you can reference to and build on based on your own organization's need and commitment. So use that as a base. I hope those helps you. So now let's go into part 3 and look at other aspects in this space. We will try to cover GDPR and data governance, global influence of GDPR, challenges and criticism, innovations and regulations, role of technology GDPR compliance, future of GDPR and data protection. So that's the agenda. So welcome board. GDPR and data governance. GDPR supports the principle of good data governance, which includes data quality and accuracy, lifecycle management, role based access control, and documentation and audit trials. This is part of integration with data management, which comes under GDPR and data governance space. In simple language, data management means how an organization collects, stores, organizes, protects, and uses data. GDPR is a law that tells organization how to protect people's personal data and use it properly. When GDPR and data management work together, they help companies handle personal data responsibly, avoid mistakes or misuse. They help stay compliant with the law. How GDPR fits into data management? Well, here's how it does. Data collection. GDPR says only collect data that you really need. Data management must make sure forms and systems collect minimum and relevant data. Example, a form asking only for names and email, not birth date if not needed. Data storage. Well, GDPR says don't keep data longer than necessary. Data management system must include retention rules and automatic deletion schedule. Example, old job application are deleted after 6 months. Data accuracy. GDPR requires data to be correct and up to date. Data management must include processes to verify and update information. Example, customers can log in and update their contact detail. Data security. GDPR says personal data must be kept safe. Data management must include encryption, access control, and backups. Example, customer records are stored securely with restricted access. User rights management. GDPR gives people rights like access, correction, deletion, and portability. Data management tools should help track and process these requests. Example, a company uses a dashboard to manage customer requests to view or delete their data. Documentation and records. GDPR requires companies to keep records of data use. Data management includes tools to document, process, and prove compliance. Example, keeping a record for processing activity or ROPA. In summary, GDPR and data management go hand in hand. Good data management helps organization comply with GDPR by making sure data is collated, used, and protected the right way. Now, coming on to the ethical data practice aspect, GDPR promotes ethical data use, aligning business practices with societal values and human rights. In simple language, ethical data practice means using people's personal data in a way that is fair, respectful, responsible, and honest. GDPR doesn't just give rules, it encourages organizations to treat personal data with care and respect, like you would with someone's personal belonging. In simple terms, do the right things with the people's data even when no one is watching. How GDPR promotes ethical data practices? Well, by being transparent. Tell people clearly what data you are collecting, why are you collecting it, how it will be used. Example, a shopping app explains exactly why it needs your email and what it will do with it. Giving people control, which is let people choose whether to share their data, which is consent, access it, assess it, fix it, and delete it, or say no to things like marketing. This is giving people the control. Example, a user can unsubscribe from promotional email with one click. Next is minimizing harm. Only collect data you truly need and avoid collecting sensitive or excessive data. Example, a school asks only for contact details and emergency information, not family income. Protect the data, which is keeping personal data safe from leaks, theft, or misuse using strong security. Example, a hospital uses password and access control, so only doctors can see patient record. Using data fairly, which is don't use personal data in a way that harms, surprises, or mislead people. Example, a company that collects job application doesn't secretly use the data for marketing. Be accountable, which is show that your organization follows the rule, trains the staff, keeps the records, fixes problem quickly and honestly. That's been accountable. Example, a company that reports a data breach honestly and works fast to fix it. In summary, ethical data practices under GDPR means treat people's data the way you would want yours to be treated, with care, honesty, and respect. It's about building trust while following the privacy laws. So, when we look at the top comparison, or rather, look at from various aspects and compare with GDPR and data governance, how they blend in. From a definition perspective, it's a legal regulation in EU that governs the protection and privacy of personal data. But from a data governance perspective, it's a strategic framework for managing data assets across the organization. From its main focus perspective, GDPR focus is protecting individuals' personal data and privacy rights. So, but from a data governance perspective, it's about ensuring data quality, availability, usability, and security across the business. From a legal requirement aspect perspective, it is legally binding in the EU for organizations handling EU citizen data. From a data governance perspective, while there is no legal requirement, it's usually voluntary or an organization best practice, but supports compliance. From a key objective aspect perspective, it's about ensuring data privacy, control, consent, and protection for individuals. But from a data governance perspective, it's about improving the data quality, manage metadata, defining ownership, and supporting compliance. From a scope of application perspective, GDPR is all about applies to personal data of EU residents, even if processed outside EU. From a data governance perspective, it applies to all enterprise data, whether it is structured, unstructured, personal, or operational. From a data types, which is covered, GDPR is only personal data. But data governance, it's all type of data, personal, operational, financial, metadata, etc. It covers whole ambit of data. From a controls required perspective, from GDPR aspects perspective, it is consent, access control, data minimization, encryption, and breach reporting. From a data governance perspective, it's about cataloging, stewardship, data lineage, master data management. From a user rights perspective, GDPR requires strong access, corrections, erasure, portability, objections, etc. But from a data governance perspective, may support user rights if integrated with privacy programs. From a risk management perspective, focuses on minimizing the privacy risk to individuals. But data governance, it's focused on operational risk, which is a data error, inefficiency, poor quality. From an enforcement perspective, It enforced by Data Protection Authority with fine up to 4% of the global revenue. But from a data governance perspective, it's internally enforced via governance council and policies. Examples are of tools and practices: data protection, impact assessment, the DPIAs, consent management, privacy policies. That's from GDPR perspective. But from a data governance perspective, is data dictionary, data lineage tool, business glossaries, stewardship model. Now, this should clear out any doubt when you look at GDPR versus data governance. There is a clear difference between these two. But if you see, data governance supports GDPR in achieving the objective of the privacy aspects. So, treat data governance as enhancing or helping in implementing the GDPR aspect for an organization. Global influence of GDPR. GDPR as a model law. Let's look at it. Several countries have adopted GDPR like regulations. Brazil has LGPD, California has CCPA, India has DPDP Act, Singapore has PDPA. In simple language, the GDPR is not just a law for Europe, it has become a global model for how countries and companies should protect personal data. In simple words, GDPR shows the world how to handle people's data in a fair, safe, and respectful way. Now, why is GDPR considered a model law? Well, to start with, it has clear rules for data protection. GDPR gives detailed, well structured rules on how to collect and use personal data, how to protect it, what rights people have. Many countries now use these rules as a guide when creating their own privacy laws. They apply beyond Europe. GDPR doesn't just apply to companies in Europe, it also applies to any company in the world that offers goods or services to people in the EU, monitors the behavior of people in the EU. This made other countries and business pay attention and follow similar standards. GDPR focuses on people's rights. GDPR gives people strong data rights such as right to access the data, right to delete, right to say no to certain uses. This has inspired global awareness, and more countries are giving similar rights to their citizens. GDPR has strong enforcement with big fines. GDPR includes real consequences. Companies can be fined, now we know, 4% of their global revenue. That makes organization take privacy seriously. And other countries are copying this strong enforcement model. As mentioned, we have countries which are having similar identical laws with them. They have borrowed ideas from GDPR like consent rules, user rights, data security, breach notification, etc. In summary, GDPR is a model law because it sets a global standard for data privacy. It protects people's rights, holds company accountable, and inspires privacy laws around the world. Now, let's look at examples of international organization using GDPR principle. Let's look at it. Microsoft. It applies GDPR standards globally to all users, not just Europeans. Apple. It promotes privacy as a core value, uses GDPR style controls worldwide. Google offers privacy dashboards and tools inspired by GDPR rights. Take Amazon. It uses GDPR aligned practices to handle customer data in multiple countries. Meta. It created user controls tools after GDPR. Applies many rules globally. Now let's look at a comparison. Brazil, the LGPD. It's inspired by GDPR. It's modeled around GDPR. It has features very similar to GDPR, like the consent, right to access, DPO, data transfer rules, etc. But it has some different, which is fines are capped, enforcement are still growing, enforcement status is active and increasing. It's evolving. The California US, the CCPA, CPRA, it's inspired, yes, focuses on transparency, that's the inspiration, and consumer rights. Similar features. The difference is there is no requirement for legal basis beyond the notice. Enforcement varies. Again, these are evolving, these are getting matured. India's DPDP, very similar. Consent required, rights are right based structured. Difference, it lacks at this stage, lacks strong independent regulator. Some rights are limited. It's just launched, but as we know, it is evolving fast. As India is evolving, its rules, regulations are getting in line with global standards and growing fast. The China's PIPL, it is strong controls, yes, but more government centric at this point of time. Features are similar: consent, data minimization, strict penalties, localization. But the difference is it's more focused on national security and data localization. Very strict, enforced by CSE with high profile cases already recorded. Japan's APPI aligned to GDPR. Similar features. Of course, less strict enforcement, limited portability. It's active, but as with other regulations, this is also evolving. South Korea, PIPA, aligned, very similar feature, but more sector specific and less harmonized initially. It's stronger now post reforms, active DPA presence, it's evolving very fast. Canada's PIPEDA, it is very similar to GDPR, requires consent, limited user rights, accountability principles, etc. Difference, it is weaker from user rights perspective, relies on future reforms, moderate, been updated, but the trend is getting more and more aligned to GDPR and in some places maybe going ahead of it. UK's GDPR, yes, originally identical, continued post Brexit with local tweaks. Same rights, penalties, DPOs, breach rules as EU GDPR, fully aligned but may diverge over time with new UK regulations. It's active but evolving. So that's how the global influence of GDPR has been. From an international organization perspective, do note, multinational companies often use GDPR as a benchmark for global data privacy programs, ensuring compliance across jurisdiction. In simple language, even though GDPR is a European law, many global companies and organizations use it as foundation for their privacy programs, even outside of Europe. Why? Because GDPR is considered one of the strongest and the clearest privacy law in the world. We looked at in the comparison chart. That would have given you a clean perspective on where GDPR stands. Well, why are they doing it? Because they have customers in Europe. If a company offers product or services to people in the European Union, GDPR legally applies, no matter where the company is based. Example, a US based software company selling to EU users must follow GDPR. GDPR builds trust worldwide. Even outside Europe, people care about how their data is used. Following GDPR shows that the company respects privacy, which builds customer trust and improves its reputation. One global privacy standard is easier. In this case, managing different privacy rules for each country would become complex. So many companies choose to apply GDPR everywhere as a global standard. It's easier than creating different systems for each region. Example, a multinational bank applies GDPR rules to all customers, whether they are in Europe, Asia, or the US. They help to prepare for new privacy laws. Countries like Brazil, India, US are creating their own GDPR law, which we saw in the table that discussed earlier. Companies that already follow GDPR are better prepared to comply. with these new rules. So, important here is if you are aligned to the GDPR, it helps you quickly get aligned to any country law because most of the country laws have taken inspiration from GDPR and built on it. Once your GDPR alignment is complete, it would require minor tweaking or addition to any new law which the country would have bought. It would be a small addendum. Hence, international organizations use GDPR to follow the law in dealing with EU citizens, build trust with user, simplify global operation, stay ready for other privacy laws. Even outside EU, GDPR is like a global privacy blueprint for doing the right thing with personal data. Challenges and criticism. Let's look at compliance cost. GDPR compliance can be expensive and complex, especially for small and medium enterprises. Simply put, compliance costs are the money, time, and effort a company spends to follow the rules of GDPR. It's what a company needs to spend or do to make sure they are handling the personal data properly and not breaking any GDPR law. What do these costs include? Well, main things companies spend on to comply with GDPR are hiring the experts. Companies may need to hire a data protection officer or privacy consultant. They may also train employees on how to handle personal data properly. Example, paying a full-time DPO to oversees data protection and GDPR compliance. Second, updating their technology and systems. Business need to make sure their software and database are secure. They may need to invest in encryption tool, access control system, secure data storages. Example, upgrading to secure cloud system that meets GDPR standards. Third, it's creating policies and documents. Company must prepare privacy policies, consent forms, record of processing activity, data breach response plan. Example, hiring legal experts to write GDPR compliant privacy terms. Next is managing user requests. GDPR gives people rights like access, correction, and deletion. Companies must set up processes or tools to handle this request within 30 days. Example, building a customer portal so users can download or delete their data. Next is doing risk assessment. For new projects or tools, company may need to run a data protection impact assessment to spot risk before starting. Example, before launching a new mobile app, doing a privacy checkup to avoid further legal issues. Dealing with audits or breaches. If there is a data breach, company must investigate, notify users and regulators, fix the problem quickly. This can cost time and money. Example, hiring a cybersecurity firm to investigate a data leak. In summary, compliance costs in GDPR are the investment companies make to protect personal data, follow privacy laws, avoid huge fines. It may seem expensive at first, but it's cheaper than paying the penalties or losing customer trust. The second challenge and criticism comes from ambiguity in interpretation. Terms like legitimate interest and public task require further legal interpretation, creating uncertainty. In simple language, ambiguity is interpretation. In interpretation means that some part of the GDPR are not crystal clear and different people or companies might understand the same rule in a different way. In simple words, some GDPR rules can be confusing or open to more than one meaning. Why does this happen? Well, GDPR is a big law written by all type of for all type of organization and situations. It uses broad language, so it can apply to small businesses and large corporations. It can apply to tech companies, banks, schools, hospitals, etc. It applies to many countries with different legal systems. Because of this, some phrases like reasonable steps high risk, large scale, legitimate interest can be interpreted differently by different people. Example of ambiguity. What counts as large scale processing? Whether it is 10,000 users large or it is 100,000 users. Different companies may see it differently. Now, what is sensitive data? GDPR lists some categories like health, race, etc. But new type of data like facial scan, genetic info may cause confusion. When is consent really freely given? If a user must give consent to access a service, is that truly optional? How is ambiguity handled in this case? Well, supervisory authorities in each EU countries give guidance and case examples. Court may decide the meaning in real life legal cases. Industry groups shares best practice to help member apply the rule consistently. The European Data Protection Board publishes clarification on tricky topics. In summary, ambiguity in GDPR means some rules are not 100% clear and may be understood differently depending on who is reading them. That's why organization needs to be careful, need to get expert advice when needed, always act in a way that respects people's privacy. The third aspect of challenge and criticism comes from enforcement disparities. Difference in enforcement rigor across EU countries can lead to inconsistent application. In simple language, it means enforcement disparity means that GDPR is not always enforced the same way in every country. In simple words, some countries are stricter, some are slower, some are given bigger fines than others, even for similar violation. Why do enforcement disparity happens in the first place? Well, GDPR is a European law, but each EU country has its own data protection authority called as supervisory authority that investigate complaints, decide if a company broke the rule, issue fine or orders. Because each authority works independently, they may interpret GDPR rules differently, move at different speed, give different punishment for similar problems. Example for enforcement disparity between two countries. In this case, as an example, Ireland versus France. Ireland handles many big tech companies like Meta, Google because their headquarters are based there. Critics say Ireland has been slower on more cautious with enforcement than France or Germany. As an example, big versus small countries. Larger countries with more resources tend to issue more fines and investigate more cases. Smaller countries may lack staff or funding, so they handle fewer cases. In case of same violation, different outcome, a company could face a £1 million fine in one country for a certain violation, but just a warning in another for the same thing. So, what's been done to fix it? Well, the European Data Protection Board tries to coordinate enforcement across countries. There's a one stop shop system for cross border cases, but it can be slow and complex. There's a call for more consistency, training, cooperation between authorities. Well, in this case, in summary, enforcement disparity in GDPR means even though the law is same across Europe, how it is enforced can vary by country, which can lead to confusion and a sense of being unfair. Let's now look at a summary. From an ambiguity in language perspective, the description says terms like legitimate interest, high risk, or vague, leading to inconsistent interpretation. That's a description. Impact creates confusion and risk of misinterpretation. Uneven enforcement, well, gives unfair advantage for firms in lenient countries. That's the impact. Complexity of for small businesses. It from an impact perspective, it inhibits innovations, risks non-compliance. From a slow adaptation to new technologies, well, the impact is leaves gaps in regulations and enforcement. From a cross-border data transfer confusion perspective, may the impact is makes international operation difficult. From a compliance cost burden, the impact is it discourages compliance among smaller players. Limited consumer awareness perspective. Well, the impact is weakens the purpose of individual rights. Many users don't understand their rights, reducing the law's real world impact. Consent fatigue. It is undermines the idea of freely given consent. That's because repeated consent pop-ups annoys users and reduces meaningful engagement. Ineffectiveness against big techs. Well, the impact is it reduces trust in regulatory effectiveness. Basically, the description says large tech firm often absorbs fine without changing their behavior, causing that reduced trust in the regulatory effectiveness. Delay in legal clarification. Well, court decisions and regulatory guidance are often delayed or inconsistent. The impact is slows business decision making and legal clarity. Innovation versus regulations. There is an ongoing debate about GDPR's impact on innovation, especially in AI and data analytics. In simple language, innovation means creating new ideas, products, and technologies like AI, health app, or online platforms. Regulations mean setting rules like GDPR to protect people's right, especially their privacy. So, innovation and regulation means balancing new technology with privacy laws. In simple word, how do we build exciting new tools without breaking the privacy laws? Well, how does GDPR support innovation? GDPR doesn't stop innovation. It just makes sure the personal data is used responsibly. People are informed and protected. Companies think about privacy from the start. Example, a health tech startup can collect user data, but only when clear consent is in place, and it must keep the data safe. Challenges for innovators under GDPR? Well, the challenge starts with more planning is required, wherein new apps and services must include privacy features by design. This takes extra time and money. You can't just collect all data just in case. You must have a clear purpose. So there is restriction on data use. Some tools may need a lot of personal data, which triggers GDPR checks. Companies may need to run data process protection impact assessment before launching. Getting user consent and setting up privacy systems can delay projects. Yes, hence it might slower product launch. But then these are initial stages. As things move, all of this might be part of the cycle and could be planned out early on. Now, why this balance matters? Well, too little regulation is equal to privacy violation and data abuse. Too much regulation slows progress and less innovation. So, GDPR encourages smart innovation that respects privacy. GDPR encourages trustworthy techs that users feel safe using. In summary, innovation versus regulation in GDPR is about finding the right balance. Let's build cool and useful things, but let's also protect people's personal data while we do it. So there's an ongoing debate on impact on innovation, especially AI data analytics. Let us try to look at a comparison or rather different perspective from innovation and regulations. From a definition perspective, it's about creating new technologies, services, solutions from innovation side. But from regulation side is ensuring personal data are handled lawfully, fairly, and transparently. The goal of innovation is to speed up disruption, scalability, and access to large data sheets. The role of regulation or GDPR is protecting individual rights and controlling data misuse. Goal of regulation seen it is innovation sees as restrictive if it limits data use or require consent for every action. But from a GDPR perspective, seen as necessary to protect the citizen, even at the cost of slowing innovation. The conflict area, innovation sees need to be faster, flexible. Data access often conflict with consent and storage limitation. But from a GDPR perspective, Fast tech changes outplaces so slow legal adoption, creating gray areas. So innovation, it looks at GDPR saying that you are slow in framing new laws and regulations which can help innovation. But both are running their race, need to catch up with each other in some area or other. Many areas GDPR is ahead, many areas innovation is taking the lead. There will be a time when both run their course and are completing the finishing line together. Supportive synergy. Innovation. Privacy by design principle encourages secure and ethical innovation. In GDPR, framework like accountability, DPI helps identify and reduces innovation risk. GDPR benefits to innovation? Well, boosts user trust in digital services. If you follow GDPR in its T, it brings in that trust. Similarly, improvements from an innovation perspective, more regulatory clarity, standardized DPIAs, and innovation friendly guidelines. From a GDPR perspective, create regulatory sandbox, offer sector specific exemptions with safeguards. So, if you look at this, what is GDPR expecting from innovation is a reasonable expectation where innovation needs to catch up, think through. But from an innovation perspective, it also expects similar, maybe in a different aspect from GDPR to catch up. So at this stage, both are running the race. It's only a matter of time that these expectations would be fulfilled by both the parties. So if you are either on the innovation side or on in the regulatory side, if there is conflict at this point of time or there is discontent, just hold your breath. It's only a matter of time when both of them speak together or complement each other. Role of technology in GDPR compliance. Data discovery tool. It helps identify where personal data resides in systems and who has access. In simple terms, data discovery tools are software tools that help companies find and understand where personal data are stored across their systems. These tools help answers the question, where is all the personal data in our company? This is very important for GDPR because company must know what personal data they are collecting. You have to know where these are stored and how are they being used so that they can respond quickly if a person asks to access, delete or fix the data. What can data discovery tool do? Well, they can scan the system for personal data like searching database, email, documents and apps to locate personal data like names, email IDs, ID numbers and so on. Label and categorize the data. Once identified, they can automatically tag the data as personal, sensitive, confidential based on the organization categories. Track data flows. It shows how data moves across the system. That's example being from web form to database and so on. And help speed up GDPR responses. It helps companies quickly respond to requests like show me what data you have about me and please delete my data. This is how data discovery tool helps. Now, why are data discovery tool useful for GDPR? Well, they help organizations stay compliant, make it easier to protect data, reduce the risk of missing hidden personal data, saves time and effort in data audit or breach investigation. Data discovery tool help companies find, label and track personal data so they can follow GDPR rules and protect people's privacy. They are like a map and search engine of your company's data. The next is encryption and anonymization, essential to ensure security and privacy compliance. Well, simply put, encryption is a way to lock personal data so that only the right people can read it. In simple words, even if someone steals the data, they can't read it without the key. So, how does encryption help under GDPR? Well, it keeps personal data safe from hackers, makes data breach less harmful, help companies protect user privacy, can reduce penalties if a breach has indeed happened. Example, a hospital stores patient's record on a computer. The data is encrypted. So, if someone steals a laptop, the files are useless without the password. So, what is anonymization in GDPR? Well, anonymization means changing personal data so that no one can identify the person it belongs to ever again. In simple words, it's like erasing all the names and clues so that data becomes just number or general facts. How does anonymization help under GDPR? Well, if data is fully anonymized, GDPR no longer applies because it no longer personal data. It helps organization use data for research or statistics without risking privacy. Example, a search lab removes name, birth date, ID number from patient data. What's left is just general information. So nobody can tell who the data really belongs to. So what's the difference? Well, encryption, it locks the data using key. Anonymization erases the identity completely. Encryption, data can be reversed? Yes. With anonymization, you cannot. Encryption, is it covered in GDPR? Yes. Anonymization is not. That's a basic difference. In summary, encryption is equal to locking the data. Anonymization is removing the identity forever. Both are important in GDPR to keep personal data private and secure. Next is consent management platform. Well, it facilitates collection and tracking of user consent in a compliant manner. In simple language, a consent management platform is a tool that helps websites and apps ask for, collect, manage, and store user consent, especially for things like cookies, tracking, marketing, data sharing. In simple word, a consent management platform or CMP is a system that helps users say yes or no to how their personal data is used and proves that company follow the rules. Why is this is important in GDPR? Well, under GDPR, consent must be clear, informed, and freely given. User must be able to say no or change their mind anytime. Companies must record proof of consent and respect user choices. CMP helps company do all of these automatically. What can CMP do? Well, it can show a consent banner. When a user visits a website, they see a pop-up asking if they agree to cookies or data use. It lets user choose. User can choose to accept all, reject all, or pick specific options. It helps store consent logs. The platform keeps records of who gave consent, when, and for what purpose. It let users change their mind. User can update or withdraw consent easily from a settings page. Now, where are CMPs used? Well, they are used in websites with cookies or trackers, mobile apps collecting user data, platforms running personalized ads or email marketing. In summary, a consent management platform is a tool that helps to ask for permission the right way, remembers the answer, and respects it just like GDPR says. The next is automated DPIAs and reporting tools. Well, it streamlines risk assessment and reporting obligations. In simple language, these are software tools that helps company perform data protection impact assessment or DPIAs. It helps generate report to show their GDPR compliance. In simple words, these tool helps organization check their privacy risk and keeps record easily and quickly without doing everything by hand. So what is a DPAI? DPAIA? A DPIA or Data Protection Impact Assessment is a checkup companies must do before starting a high risk project that uses personal data. Example, launching a health app or a facial recognition tool. What does automated DPIA mean? An automated DPI tool asks questions through a form or a dashboard. It helps identify if the project has a high privacy risk. It suggests way to reduce those risks. It automatically creates a summary report. This saves time, improves accuracy, and helps companies follow the rules more easily. What are the automated reporting tools? Well, this tool helps track what data is collected, record who has access, shows when and how a user gave consent, generate compliance report for audits or inspection. These tools are specially helpful for managing user data rights requests, handling data breach reports, keeping proof of compliance in one place. Now, when we look at in summary, automated DPIs and reporting tool help companies find privacy risk early on and prove they are following GDPR without doing everything manually. They makes compliance faster, easier and more reliable. In comparison, this is the sheet, the table. It should help you from a technology perspective how the GDPR compliance purpose is achieved, with the benefits and the challenges. You can pause the screen, you can take a screenshot, and you can see how this works for you in your own organization. Let us look at some tools. We have tools like OneTrust, TrustArc, Security, Big ID, PrivIQ, DataGuard, LogicGate, Extero, Colibra, Verasafe. Well, the main features are listed and also what are the best fit for. You can have a look into this. You can pause the screen and look at what you are currently looking out for and pick the tool and test it out. If you already have these tools, you can look at other tools and see if there is any tool which you might want to replace or use a new tool to complement your existing structure. Hope these tools help you in your strategy. Future of GDPR and data protection. Artificial intelligence and GDPR. As AI becomes pervasive, balancing innovation with data subject rights becomes critical. GDPR's restriction on automated decisions making will need clearer guidance. In simple language, AI is used to make decisions, spot patterns, and automate tasks, often using large amount of personal data. GDPR is a law that protects how personal data is collected, used, and shared. So, when AI uses personal data, it must follow GDPR rules to keep that data safe, fair, and respectful. So, how will AI and GDPR come together? Well, AI must be transparent. GDPR says people must know what data is collected, why it is used, how decisions are made. But AI can be a black box, meaning it is hard to explain how it makes decisions. GDPR requires company to explain AI decisions in simple terms. People have rights over AI decisions. Under GDPR, if a computer makes a decision about you without any human help, you can ask for a human to review it, challenge the decision, get an explanation. Example, if an AI system rejects your loan application, you can request a human to recheck. AI must not be biased or harmful. AI should not discriminate based on race, gender, religion, etc. AI should not make decisions that are unfair or damaging. GDPR requires companies to test their AI system for fairness and protect user rights. Personal data must be protected. AI system must secure the data they use. Only use the data needed and delete it when no longer needed. Data protection impacts assessment for AI. If an AI system uses sensitive data or has a big impact on people, companies must do a risk assessment, take steps to reduce harm, possibly consult with the data protection authority. Example, a health app using AI for diagnosis using a needs a DPIA. In summary, AI and GDPR must work together to make sure smart machines use personal data in a way that is clear, fair, and safe for people. GDPR helps keeps human rights and privacy protected even in the world of AI. Now, if you look at it, let's go on to the second, which is cross border data transfer. It's about screams through invalidates privacy shield, raising uncertainty, standard contractual clauses, and adequacy decisions remain key mechanism. Now, what's this? In simple language, cross border data transfer happens when a company in one country sends personal data to another country. In simple words, it's like sharing people's personal data across country borders, such as sending data from Europe to US or India. Now, what is this privacy shield? Well, the EU US privacy shield was an agreement that allowed companies in US to legally receive personal data from Europe as long as they promised to protect it like GDPR requires. Now, what was this Screams 2? Screams 2 is the nickname of a 2020 court case where privacy activist Max Schrems challenged this agreement. The European Court of Justice decided that US government surveillance law do not protect US citizens' data well enough. So the court invalidated the privacy shield. Now, what does invalidate mean? It means privacy shield is no longer legal. Company can't rely on it anymore to move personal data from EU to US. Why did the court do this? Well, US agencies could access EU citizens' data. EU citizens had no legal way to challenge that. So the court said it violated GDPR and fundamental rights. So what happened next? Company had to find other legal tools to transfer data, like the standard contractual clause or SCC. But even SCCs now require extra checks to ensure data is protected after transfer. It caused confusion and disruption, especially for tech and cloud companies. Hence, in summary, Stream 2 is the clause that killed the privacy shield because the EU court ruled sending EU personal data to the US using this system is not safe under GDPR. Now, companies needed stricter safeguard to move data internationally. So, what does GDPR say about this? Well, GDPR protects personal data even when it leaves Europe. So, if a company wants to send or store EU data in another country, it must make sure that country protects the data properly, just like GDPR does. When is a cross-border transfer allowed? Well, GDPR allows a transfer only if the other country has strong privacy laws. The European Commission says it is safe. Or example, Canada and Japan have this status. The company puts strong safeguards in place, such as standard contractual clause. or pre-approved legal term that promises to protect the data. The person gives clear consent. The user is told the risk and agreed to transfer. It's necessary for a contract. For example, an airline sends your booking info to a hotel abroad. Well, what if the rules aren't followed? The company could face fine under GDPR, it could damage customer trust. Data may be at risk in countries without strong privacy protection. Example, the European company uses a cloud provider in the US to store customer emails. To comply with GDPR, the company must use SEC or check if US company is in a safe country or get consent from the customer. In summary, cross border data transfer under GDPR means if you are sending people data outside Europe, you must make sure that privacy is protected, just like it would be at home. Now, coming on to digital sovereignty and localization, what this is about. GDPR has encouraged discussions around digital sovereignty and data localization in regions like the EU and India. In simple terms, digital sovereignty means that a country or region like the European Union wants to control how digital data is used, stored, and protected within its own borders. In simple word, our country, our data, our rule. It's about making sure the foreign government or companies don't misuse citizen data or gain unfair control. What is data localization? Well, data localization means keeping personal data stored inside the country or region where it was collected. In simple terms, if you collect my data in Europe, you must store and process it in Europe or follow Europe's privacy law. So, how GDPR support digital sovereignty and localization? Well, GDPR helps protect US citizen data even when it is stored in other countries. It's processed by even when it's processed by non-European companies. GDPR says personal data can't be sent outside EU unless the other country offers similar protection. Companies must follow strict rules when using foreign cloud service or data centers. This protects Europe's digital independence and builds trust. Now, why does it matter? Well, digital sovereignty, the purpose is to ensure EU has control over how data is handled, especially by global tech giants. Data localization is about keeping sensitive personal data within EU border or under EU law. Example, a German health app collects patient data under GDPR. The data must be stored in a secure server, ideally in EU. If stored abroad, the company must ensure GDPR level protection. This keeps controls in EU hand even if the cloud service is in America or Asia. In summary, digital sovereignty and data localization in GDPR means Europe wants to protect its people data by keeping control, no matter where the data goes. It's about privacy, security, and independence in a digital world. Let's now look at some summary table that should help you plan your strategies. You can pause the screen and you can look at the details. From a trend perspective, we have global privacy convergence, AI and automated decision making, cross border data transfer, evolving consent model, and so on. The impact and the future outlooks are defined here. Example, regulatory technology. Well, growth in automation and AI powered tools to manage compliance and risk more efficiently. That's the future outlook. Impact, investment in smart compliance platform will increase. This should give you a top level perspective on how this space is going to be. You can pause the screen and you can go through each item. It is self explanatory and you can dig deeper. From a artificial intelligence and GDPR perspective, collecting data. It's collect only necessary personal data with a valid legal basis. Example, a chatbot app collects user messages for learning. It must get consent and limit data use. So how an AI can work out to support GDPR? Similarly, cross-border data transfer. We discussed this, but this is a tabular form on a transfer mechanism, what it means, few examples, key requirements, and challenges associated with these transfer mechanism. From data sovereignty and localization perspective, we discuss this. What does it mean from a digital sovereignty perspective, and what does it mean from data localization perspective? This should help you plan out how things would look like on ground for your area. Now, if you look at a summary of all the laws, GDPR effective since 2018, DPDP since 2023, that's from India, and where it applies to, its scope, legal basis of processing, what are the user rights, what is the position on consent requirement, what are the data transfer rules across these different regulations and acts, what are the fines that are associated with each, what's the regulatory involvement, and what's the focus. Example, from a focus perspective, GDPR is strong privacy, user control, CCPA, business transparency and opting out options, LGPD, balanced privacy and businesses, DPDP, user protection and digital economy, PIPL, national security plus user rights. So let's look at some strength and the focus. GDPR, strongest privacy framework, focuses on user control and accountability. CCPA, business friendly and has an opt out model. Focus, consumer data and transparency. LGPD, GDPR like with local adjustments. Balanced privacy for Brazil. DPDP, it's consent focused, still evolving. Focus is digital economy and privacy. PIPL, very strict with security emphasis. Focus, state control and national data. In conclusion, GDPR has redefined global data protection norms and placed individual rights at the center of the digital economy. Its far-reaching principles have influenced global regulatory landscape and reshaped how organizations handle personal data. While compliance presents challenges, GDPR encourages ethical, transparent, and secure data practices. As data continues to power innovation, GDPR remains a cornerstone in the quest to balance individual privacy with organizational needs. Looking ahead, its evolution will be shaped by emerging technologies, geopolitical trends, and societal values, ensuring that the regulation remains relevant in an increasingly data driven world. With this, we conclude this series. We have covered the original objectives for this three-part video. I hope this has helped you in some way. Do take this as indicative data, information for your planning and planning your strategies. You can take the checklist as a base reference. Then you can build and work on your vendors within the organization, outside also. The whole objective of this series is to help organization understand the space, prepare them to embrace this regulation, also be ready for any local regulation which would have taken inspiration from this. Having said that, We should have these refined over a period of time. Laws are evolving, and hence I expect we might have a newer version of this very soon. When that comes in, I will try to get a additional addendum to the video. For the time, I would like to thank you for the time that you have invested. I hope this helped you in some way. So, thank you very much for the time. This is your host, Savit Vittal Salian. Namaskar.